Okay, so in this section, we're going to cover entry controls. Now, building envelope is another section that gets confused with entry controls. Building envelope is about doors and windows and how your doors are constructed and how your windows are constructed and air handling systems and preventing people from unauthorized access to the building from a physical standpoint. Entry controls are more of the human aspect of it. How do you control people entering both the campus and the school building? So it's not so much of as what your doors and windows are made of, like building envelope. Entry control is more about how you keep people out of the building. So this is another one of the more complicated sections. As we go down through the self-assessment, the questions do get more complicated. So if at any point you have issues and troubles, reach out to us and we're glad to help. So just like the other sections, you can get to this section by clicking here on entry controls down on the main screen, or we can go over to hit assessment and then entry controls. So this doesn't look like much because there's only two things that are true. But of course, these two things are going to always be true. Sometimes I don't know why we didn't just select them for you. Does your building have more than one campus or perimeter entrances, meaning one or more ways to get into the campus, a controlled mechanism to get into the campus? And does the school building have one or more entrances where students enter? You've kind of answered that yes when you did building envelope, so we're going to say yes here. Now, it is possible that if your campus and perimeter entrances are completely uncontrolled, and it is the wild, wild west, and people can come and go as they please, you wouldn't select this, but then you're going to get marked for missing a lot of things. So just assume you're going to select both campus and perimeter entrances and school building entrances, and then hit save and reload. All right, so now we're going to get into the section overview questions. So section overview questions. Now, the only reason these campus perimeter entrances and these building entrances are not part of the section overview is because you may have more than one with different answers. So you may have to be answering each of these subsections more than one time. So that's why we didn't just build it and put it in the section overview. Okay. First question in the section overview. Does your school have an open interior where there's no or few floor-to-ceiling walls separating classrooms? Now, I know this doesn't seem like an entry control question, but it's a question that has been in a lot of surveys that come from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, different state regulators. They want to know, if you have an open plan where once you're in the school, it's almost like it's a big gymnasium and the students are in separate sections and they're not walled off from each other. We want to know that question because there are specific recommendations if that is the layout of your plan. So it's in this section even though it doesn't feel like it belongs here. So I'm going to say no because it is not the most common open plan. Are individual classrooms locked during class sessions? So again, this is entry control, but it's not entry control into the building. It's entry control controlling entry to individual classes. So are the individual classrooms locked? Yes or no? We're going to say yes. Are facility areas and lounges locked during, faculty areas and lounges locked during class sessions? We're going to say yes to that too. Okay, so those are general questions, are pretty basic, but now we're getting into the building entrance. So we're going to hit show questions here. Okay, so for each of your building entrances, so if you have 4 building entrances, you're going to go through this section 4 different times. This is the one that you just decided is the first one. And then we're going to, at the end of this subsection, we'll add another one and go through this again. So who used this entrance? So we're going to say that this is a student only, or we're going to say this is an entrance that is used by students, parents, and staff. So it's a main building entrance. And we'll just say students and parents. We'll just say that faculty and staff, they have a different entrance. So we're going to say students and parents go through this entry. Is this entrance staffed during school entry times? We're going to say yes. Okay, who staffs it? Is it staffed by law enforcement? Is it staffed by school security? Is it faculty? Is it other staff? Is it volunteers? So we're going to say that it's school security and faculty. Does the staff at the entrance have communications equipment? We're going to say that they do. Okay, is an ID required to use this entrance? Meaning you're coming into this entrance, the students have to show an ID when they come through, and we're going to say yes. How are IDs checked? Each ID is checked individually upon entry. IDs are shown but not matched with the person entering. We see this a lot in a lot of different kind of buildings where you wave an ID, but the person doesn't actually look at the ID. Okay, so that's why that's an answer here, because this does actually have. IDs are worn at all the times, and they're looked for by the staff, or IDs are not checked. So we're going to say IDs are individually checked upon entry, although that's not the thing that happens most often. Okay, is there a policy in place for students who are missing their IDs? We're going to say yes. Does the student have a pedestrian barrier does this entrance have a pedestrian barrier such as a turnstile? We're going to say no. Is this entrance covered by video surveillance system? We're going to say yes. Do you have a VSS in use signposts? Again, we're getting redundant a little bit here because we might have asked some of these same questions in other sections. But again, we'd rather just over-answer the questions and make sure that everything gets answered. Okay, is this entrance locked, meaning the entry is restricted during the school day? So if this is our main entrance and this is how the students are coming and going, we're going to say it's not restricted or it's not locked. Are people using this entrance screened using electronic security equipment such as metal detectors? Okay, so this is where it's starting to get interesting. We're going to say yes. So when we say yes to metal detectors, it's going to be check all that apply. We're using walk-through metal detectors, we're using handheld metal detectors, and we're using explosive, narcotics, and chem bio detection equipment. So I'm going to just say we're using a walk-through metal detector, and then there's somebody standing at the other end with a handheld metal detector. Are packages, including backpacks and books, screened using electronic security equipment? I'm going to say no. Okay, so we answered all of these questions for one entrance, and now we can say, well, let's just say we have a faculty entrance. Now, you're going to see my spelling errors, and then we'll have a description. So it might be located at the west side of the building, blah, 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 blah. That's going to end up in the report, so write a good description about your additional building entrances. I'm going to cancel that because they're all going to be the same questions again. But the difference might be that first entrance was student and parents. You might have a second entrance that is faculty and staff only. And you might have a third entrance that the visitors and deliveries come in through. So this is entry control for each of your building entrances. So I got to go back and I think I just unchecked some answers. I'm going to say students and parents. Okay, I'm going to hide these questions. And now we're going to look at the campus and perimeter entrances. So up until now, we've been talking about entry control as it relates to the school building itself. Now we want to talk to entry control for the campus itself. So again, we talked about physical barriers and perimeter security, about having gates and drop arms and fences and intrusion detection equipment. But in this case, we're talking about who are you allowing in? Okay, so are vehicles entering the entrance screened, monitored, and inspected? Well, you're going to say no. Is this entrance staffed during school drop-off times? Because, okay, this may not be your school drop-off area. The entrance to the campus is not necessarily the drop-off area. So this is the point at which the student or the vehicle or the person is no longer on the public property. They are now on the school campus property. And so we're going to say it is staffed. So we asked you once before, are you staffing the drop-off area? In this case, we're also asking, are you staffing the entrance? Is a vehicle permit required to enter the school grounds? And I'm going to say no. And then who is authorized to use this entrance? Students being dropped off, staff, faculty, and visitors. This does not seem like a lot of questions for the campus entry because it really isn't in a school type of situation. So these are your campus perimeter questions. And so now we're done with entry control. So now the combination of entry control and building envelope are really how you're looking at the physical protection of the school building. And then the combination of entry control and perimeter security is how you're talking about protecting the entryways into the campus. Okay, so our next section is going to be physical security, but at this point we are now complete with entry controls.